Whisper of the Heart, Part 6, Inspoken Truths. Winter deepened, settling over the town like a thick blanket of snow. The days grew shorter, and the nights longer, filled with the comforting warmth of the hearth and the quiet companionship Alice and Jack had come to cherish. They had settled into a rhythm now, one that seemed both effortless and inevitable. There was a sense of peace in the air, but beneath it, something lingered, an unspoken truth they had both been avoiding. One cold evening, as the snow fell softly outside, Alice sat by the fire, a blanket draped over her lap. Jack was seated across from her, his gaze distant, the flickering flames reflected in his eyes. They had grown comfortable in their silence, but tonight felt different. The air seemed heavier, weighed down by something neither had dared to say out loud, though they both felt it. The future they had once feared was now upon them.
Jack, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. It's been on my mind for a while, but I wasn't sure how to bring it up.
You can ask me anything, Alice. You know that.
Do you ever think about what happens next? I mean, we've spent all this time talking about living in the moment, about making the most of the time we have left. But what happens when the time runs out?
I've thought about it. A lot, actually. It's hard not to. We've built something beautiful together, but there's no escaping the fact that time is always moving forward, and eventually, one of us will have to face that.
Question: do you believe we should talk about the end, or is it better to focus on living without thinking about it? A. Yes, we should talk about it. It's part of life, and we shouldn't avoid it. B. No, it's better to focus on living and not dwell on what we can't control. C. It depends. Sometimes it's necessary, but we shouldn't let it overshadow our time together.
Answer A. Yes, we should talk about it. It's part of life, and we shouldn't avoid it. I think we have to talk about it. Pretending it isn't there won't make it go away. The end is part of life, and if we're going to build something real together, we have to be willing to face all of it, including the parts we don't want to think about. It's not about being afraid. It's about being prepared. So when the time comes, we know we've said what needs to be said.
You're right. It's easy to pretend it's not something we need to worry about, but the truth is, it's always there, isn't it? I've been afraid to bring it up because I didn't want to ruin the peace we've found. But maybe talking about it will give us more peace in the end.
The fire crackled softly, the light flickering across their faces. The snow outside had begun to fall more heavily, and the world beyond the windows was quiet, as if waiting for their next words. Alice set her book aside and moved closer to Jack, her expression more serious than he had seen in some time.
I've been thinking a lot about what I want, about how I want to spend the rest of my time. And I don't mean to be morbid, but I think we need to have a plan, don't you? So we don't leave things unsaid or unfinished.
I agree. We need to talk about it, not just for us, but for the people we care about. If we don't face it now, it'll be harder later. And I don't want to leave anything unsaid, Alice. Not between us.
Question: Do you believe that making plans for the end can bring peace, or does it make it harder to live in the moment? A. Making plans brings peace. It helps us feel more prepared for the inevitable. B. It makes it harder to live in the moment because we're focusing on something sad. C. Both. It brings peace, but it's difficult to balance that with living fully.
Answer C. Both. It brings peace, but it's difficult to balance that with living fully. I think it's both. Making plans brings peace because it helps us feel like we're in control of something that's otherwise out of our hands. But at the same time, it can be hard to focus on the present when we're always thinking about the end. It's about finding that balance, preparing for what's coming, but still living fully in the time we have.
I think we've always been good at finding balance, haven't we? Even when things felt impossible, we found a way through. I suppose this is just another step in that. But Jack, how do we find the courage to face it? How do we make peace with the fact that no matter what, time always wins?
The fire began to burn lower, casting the room in a dim, golden glow. Jack leaned back in his chair, his face illuminated by the last flickers of the flames. Outside, the snow had piled up, a thick, unbroken blanket over the earth, as if the world had paused for just a moment.
I think we make peace by accepting that it's not about how much time we have, but about what we do with it. We've spent too long worrying about time, about whether we had enough of it. But in the end, it's not the time that matters. It's the moments, the memories, and those are ours to keep, no matter what.
You're right. It's not about the years, is it? It's about the moments that stay with us, the love that lasts even when the time runs out. Maybe that's the secret, knowing that love doesn't end when the clock stops ticking. It stays with us, even after everything else fades. Question: do you believe that love can outlast time, or does time always win in the end? A. Love can outlast time. It's the one thing that never fades. B. Time wins in the end, but love makes it easier to bear. C. Love and time are intertwined. Neither can outlast the other, but together they give meaning.
Answer A. Love can outlast time. It's the one thing that never fades. I believe that love can outlast time. It's the one thing that's stronger than the years, than the minutes ticking by. Even when time runs out, the love we've shared, the moments we've had, that stays. It's what makes life worth living, and what makes the end a little easier to face.
I think I've always believed that too. Maybe that's why I'm not so afraid anymore. Because I know that whatever happens, whatever time we have left, we'll still have this. We'll still have each other.
The fire had burned down to embers, the last warmth of the evening lingering in the air. Outside, the snow continued to fall, quiet and peaceful, as if the world had slowed to a gentle hush. Alice and Jack sat together in the dim light, their hands clasped tightly, their unspoken truths now shared between them. The future, once full of uncertainty, now seemed less frightening. Together, they had found peace, not in the endlessness of time, but in the love that would outlast it.
So, no more avoiding the tough conversations?
No more avoiding. We've got nothing to be afraid of now.
They smiled at each other. The weight of the unspoken finally lifted. The night grew deeper, but inside the warmth remained, steady and constant, like the quiet flame of their love, still burning brightly despite the passage of time. And so, in the quiet of the night, Alice and Jack found peace not in the endlessness of time, but in the love they knew would outlast it, holding each other close as the snow fell softly outside. 5 words related to the theme of Whisper of the Heart, Part 6, Unspoken Truths.
Acceptance, the calm that comes from embracing the realities of life, love, and time. Closure, the sense of resolution that comes from facing the end with honesty and courage.
Legacy, the love and memories that remain even after time has run out. Continuity, the belief that love, once shared, carries on beyond time.
Vulnerability, the openness required to confront the hardest truths with the person you love.